On October 30th, 2022, Atletico Bilbao and Villarreal were paired up in a standard La Liga game of the 2023 La Liga season. Nothing out of the ordinary, except the fact that this game started the chain event of reactions that may have broken football. Now, the title may be a bit misleading because the touch wasn't actually a first touch, but let's rewind a little bit. Coming into the 2023 season, Villarreal wasn't doing too bad. They had finished 7th place in the season before, helping them qualify for the Europa League. And one of the players that helped them achieve this was Giovanni Lo Celso, who was on loan from Tottenham Hotspurs. During the offseason that year, Spurs decided that Lo Celso wasn't in their plans in the future, especially with the arrivals of Bentancur and Sessegnon, so Villarreal decided to reloan him for the 2023 season. This was probably a good move considering that their midfield had two players who were straight up unplayable on FIFA. And so Lo Celso returned back to the starting lineup, and 2 months later, he's about to play against Bilbao in a tightly contested match. In the 23rd minute, Uriel Alvarez misses the ball by inches, letting it fall to Lo Celso. He dribbles to the right and attempts a failed backheel pass to the striker, in which we'll call the first of our 3 touches. Now, the play itself was a useless, common play, but the aftermath of the touch is what's important, because for whatever reason, on that touch, Lo Celso extended his leg just a little bit too much, and ended up tearing his hamstring, an injury that was more severe than expected and would require surgery. So if you're watching this and don't see where I'm going with it, then I'm assuming you didn't watch the 2021 Copa America, because anyone who watched Argentina beat Brazil in the finals would know that Lo Celso wasn't just any average player. Argentina's midfield 3 in the Copa America consisted of Leandro Paredes, Rodrigo de Paul, and Giovanni Lo Celso. Paredes provided much of the defense, de Paul provided much of the aggression and energy, and Lo Celso provided the creativity. He was the one who connected the midfield with the attack, and most importantly, brought Messi into the game. Now, Argentina had players on the bench who could defend and run, as well as de Paul and Paredes. But Lo Celso? Well, I'll let the Argentina coach describe to you just how important he was.
Tenemos un aprecio especial, ha estado el primer día con nosotros y es un chico que lo queremos un montón. Además de que, bueno, siempre ha jugado y es uno de los pilares de nuestro equipo.
And in one touch, Lo Celso missed out on what is every player's dream to represent their country in the World Cup. And more importantly, Argentina lost a crucial player for their cup aspirations. Now, coming into the 2022 World Cup, people weren't really thinking of Lo Celso. In fact, I'd argue that most average fans didn't even know who Lo Celso was. Taking his place in the squad was Papu Gomez, another midfielder who possessed more attacking traits. But Argentina quickly realized that Gomez wasn't the solution to the Lo Celso problem. When they went down 2-1 against Saudi Arabia, Scaloni realized that the attack wasn't clicking. The high press by the Saudis and the Argentinian lack of control in the midfield made it impossible for Messi and company to control possession like they were accustomed to. And despite adding Alvarez, Fernandez, and Acuna into the mix, they ended up suffering one of the most shocking defeats in World Cup history. And for a brief second, it seemed all hope was lost. Argentina's next match was against Mexico, and I'll preface it by saying that this was the game where everything changed. You may not have noticed it. I mean, I didn't notice it, and I don't think anyone knew just how much this game would change football history. But it did, and it started with a simple observation by coach Lionel Scaloni. What Lionel Scaloni realized was that with Lo Celso gone, a midfield of Gomez, Paredes, and de Paul just wasn't going to work anymore. It lacked synergy. Paredes couldn't play the number 6 nearly as well as before. Gomez couldn't get Messi involved like Lo Celso did, and so with a quick snap of a finger, he swapped them out for substitutes Guido Rodriguez and Alexis McAllister. At first glance, it didn't seem like this new midfield was going to work. By the 57th minute, Argentina had, wait for it, 0 shots on goal. The Mexican defense was absolutely hounding the Argentinians, and it made for an absolute dogfight in the middle. For Mexico, it was their game to win. For Argentina, if they didn't figure something out, they were doomed. No team had ever lost their first fixture and drawn their second one and won the World Cup. They were fighting against history. And so early in the second half, Scaloni throws in his first substitute of the match, Enzo Fernandez for Guido Rodriguez. And then in the 64th minute, this happened. Wait, pause it right there. So, that's the second touch. And if you watch the World Cup, you'd know that this ends up as a goal. But let's do some calculations real quick. The regulation distance between the goal line and the penalty box is 18 yards, and it was covered by these 3 stripes, meaning that each stripe is about 6 yards long. When receiving that pass, Messi was approximately in the middle of the stripe, with midfielder Hector Herrera standing on the end of the stripe, meaning that Messi had about 3 yards of room to work with when taking that touch. To put that into perspective, an average size hammock is 3 yards. Messi had less than a hammock amount of space to take a touch and score a goal while being hounded down by one of Mexico's best midfielders of all time. If the first touch was the definition of misfortune, then the second touch? Well, it had to be perfection. Because with Herrera running at Messi at full speed at such a close distance, and the ball coming not just fast, but with a slight bounce, Messi had 0.7 seconds to put it on the ground and score. If the touch is too hard, Herrera steals it. If the touch is too soft, Messi doesn't have enough power to shoot. If the touch is too far to the right, Herrera steals it. If it's too far to the left, Messi would have to use the inside of his boot, meaning no power behind the shot. It's a touch that looks so deceptively simple on the outside, yet requires unimaginable skill. But there's a reason why we call him the GOAT. If you think the second touch was difficult, then the third one provides some pretty close competition. Even with Messi controlling the ball in such a tight space, there were a couple of obstacles en route to the goal. First was the most obvious observation: distance. With the shot being outside of the box, the shot had to cover 25 yards of distance. To put that into perspective, out of the 172 goals scored in the tournament, there were only 11 that were scored outside the box. And if you discount all the ones that were a product of misfortune rather than pure skill, then only 4 of these goals were from a further distance than Messi's. Now the second obstacle were the 4 players that were in a 6-yard radius within Messi when he took the shot. Take a split second too long or drag your shot wide and Herrera is slide tackling that ball all the way back to Barcelona. Hit the ball at the wrong angle and it deflects off of one of the players. In fact, en route to the goal, there was less than 1 yard of space in between the Argentinian and Mexican players, meaning that the shot had to be inch perfect. And the last obstacle was actually scoring. Even if Messi were able to successfully take a touch and get it through the defenders, he would have to get it past 6-foot-tall goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa, who was positioned in the center of the goal. Ochoa already stood about 3 feet in front of the goal, therefore covering the majority of the goal line after diving. To get it inside the small space in between Ochoa's hand and the goalpost, Messi couldn't be off by 1.25 degrees. And this is all while getting enough velocity on the ball to cover that distance. But if soccer is a game of numbers, then Messi is the world's greatest mathematician. With Argentina's fate on his shoulders at the old age of 35 years old, Messi delivers once again.
Lionel Messi, Messi's here! That's what they came for! The Magic Man!
Now, to put it simply, let me explain to you what would have probably happened if Messi didn't score that goal. Mexico was already playing an extraordinarily aggressive and defensive style throughout the Cup. In fact, the only goals they conceded in the group stage was against Saudi Arabia when they were playing all-out attack due to fair play rules, and the 2 against Argentina. Mexico only conceded 6 shots on target throughout the entire Cup, 2 of which came against Argentina. So if Messi doesn't come through with that goal, there's pretty good odds that they don't even win that game. And if they don't win that game, not only would they have to beat France and England before playing the final, but they would also have to be the first team in history to lose and draw their first 2 games and win the trophy, assuming they win their last group stage game. Either way, the chances of winning the Cup become infinitesimally more difficult. On top of that, this game was also important in that it introduced 2 key figures into the side that would change Argentina's fortune: Alexis McAllister and Enzo Fernandez. With Scaloni having to change up the midfield due to the disruptive force of Lo Celso's injury, Argentina discovered 2 gems on the bench who would be involved in 4 goals essential to ensuring their victory. Fernandez would be so crucial for advancing the ball in a deep-lying playmaking role and preventing attackers from crossing into the back line that he would win the Cup's Best Young Player of the Year. McAllister would score the opening goal against Poland and assist that goal against France. Both of them would be purchased by Premier League teams after the World Cup for a combined €150 million, with the former shattering the Premier League all-time transfer record. Fernandez's transfer would begin the Todd Boehly era of Chelsea, with nearly €800 million spent during the 23 and 24 season, along with the departure of nearly the entire Chelsea team that won the Champions League. The Mexico-Argentina game would help solidify an Argentina squad that would have the talent, confidence, and fortune to win the 2022 World Cup, cementing Lionel Messi's place as the greatest player in the history of football, overtaking both Pelé and Maradona in the process. It would stop Mbappe from winning a second World Cup, preventing the inevitable passing of the torch and delaying the Mbappe vs Haaland Ballon d'Or debate for just one more year. Now, you may call this whole thing a big stretch or a complete slippery slope fallacy, but the ramifications of not just Argentina's win, but the way they won, effectively changed the transfer market, Ballon d'Or race, and legacy of football history. And it all started with just 3 touches. 3 touches that broke football. Thanks for watching.